Luke chapter 22, reading from verse 54. Then they seized Jesus and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But Peter denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then, about an hour later, still another kept insisting, "Surely this man also is with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you're talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And Peter went out and wept bitterly. I do not know him. In these 5 words, Peter commits an utter betrayal of Jesus. He betrays his friend, and he betrays his own vocation as the rock on which Jesus would build his church. And it is also a deeply personal betrayal. He betrays his identity as Peter, the rock, the dependable one, whose most fervent ambition was to be Jesus' most dependable disciple. And it is deeply personal to Jesus also. I do not know him. When we think of the disciple who betrayed Jesus, we usually think of Judas. But right now, Peter thinks it's him. "See, the one who betrays me is at hand. His hand is with me on this table." Nobody knew to whom that referred. Peter was clearly anxious that it might be him. "Surely not I," he said. And he swears that he would even go to prison and death with Jesus rather than betray him. But now he's become the very person he most dreaded, the betrayer. It is a betrayal every bit as bad as Judas's. As you read the Bible story, the only difference really between Peter and Judas seems to be that Peter hung around long enough to be forgiven, whereas Judas would not. But the severity of the sin is just the same. The truth is that we are all the disciple who betrayed Jesus. 2 years ago, I stood in the courtyard of the recently excavated high priest's house in Jerusalem, and I looked down into the hole which formed its only prison cell, the place where Jesus spent his last night on earth. It sits just under the courtyard, and I realised just how easily Jesus could hear every word that Peter spoke. We might think that betraying Jesus is an easy option, but every betrayal is conducted in the full presence of Jesus. I stood where Peter had stood, and I remembered my own betrayal of Jesus. Of course, I betrayed him many times, but there was one occasion in particular where, like Peter, I betrayed everything. The vocation he'd given me, everything I stood for, and even Jesus himself. And now, at that moment, as I stood where Peter stood, it suddenly hit me that Jesus was there when all that happened. I realised how much I had hurt him. And like Peter, my response was to run away and to weep. I don't remember ever weeping with more bitterness or regret. And as I came to, I found myself in the chapel above the excavations. And as I looked up through my teary eyes, I found my gaze being drawn up into the centre of the great dome, and there was a picture of Jesus with his arms open wide. And he was smiling at me. And the gesture seemed to say, "It's okay. Don't you see? You must all become deserters. It was never dependent on you getting it right in the first place. It's not you who solves it all. It's me. And I have solved it all. I've done everything that was necessary. That's what it's all about. It's okay." In the end, for us, as for Peter and Judas, what counts is not the degree of the sin, but the willingness to be forgiven. In the end, we can only be saved when we realise that we are all deserters and that only Jesus saves. It's only those who recognise the true depth of their need to be saved who can truly serve Jesus, because they're the ones who realise that they don't do it in their own righteousness, but because Jesus has saved them and done all that is necessary. In the end, we can't resist the temptation to say, "I do not know him." But fortunately, Jesus knows us. He knows of what we are made. He knew that it was always going to go this way. Yes, we protested that we would go to prison and death rather than betray him. But Jesus always knew how it would unfold. And he always knew that our betrayal would happen in his presence. Yes, it hurt him. But he never stopped loving us and never expected it to be otherwise. This whole journey from that birth in the stable when he was born into the fallen state of human flesh, right the way through to the cross that now looms, it was all about this. We were always going to betray him, and we were always going to be loved, saved, forgiven, and offered new life again. And then we're sent out, put back on our feet, and sent back out to those who do not know yet, to everyone else who is as lost as we are, anyone else who might still be protesting to the world, "I do not know him." Ah, yes, but he knows us.
Within our darkest night, you kindle the fire that never dies away, that never dies away. Within our darkest night, you kindle the fire that never dies away, that never dies away. Within our darkest night, you kindle the fire that never dies away, that never